The Republican Party is a party of racists and bigots, and sometimes they let it slip and show the public their true colors. Well, this week it happened quite a bit.
Arizona.
Well, Mr. Chairman, though that was unbelievably inspiring, my amendment has nothing to do with whether or not colored people or black people or anybody can serve, okay? It has nothing to do with color of your skin, any of that stuff. What we want to preserve and maintain is the fact that our military does not become a social experiment. We want the best of the best. We want to have standards that guide who's in what unit, what they do. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, the North Koreans, they are not doing this because they want the strongest military possible. I hope my colleagues on the other side can understand what we're doing. Thank you so much.
Mr. Speaker, it's going to be recognized to have the words colored people.
For what purposes does the gentlelady seek recognition?
I'd like to be recognized to have the words colored people stricken from the record. I find it offensive and very inappropriate.
Is the gentlelady asking for unanimous consent to take down the words?
I am asking for unanimous consent to take down the words of referring to me or any of my colleagues as colored people.
For what purposes, the gentleman from Arizona?
Can I amend my comments to people of color?
The gentleman wishes to amend his comments. Is the gentleman asking consent?
Mr. Speaker, to have the word stricken. I didn't ask for an amendment.
Is there unanimous consent to have the word stricken? Without objection, so ordered.
That was Eli Crane using the slur colored people to refer to black people. Now, he was on the House floor debating the defense budget, which he was trying to fight against the Democratic initiatives of diversity, equity, and inclusion training for our military members. So Crane is fighting against diversity proposals from Democrats. In that short clip, he also talked about how Russians aren't doing this and how he only wants the best of the best. I think that's really funny because Russia used to have the second most powerful military in the world, and now they have the second most powerful military in Ukraine. Why does Eli Crane want to follow Russians who seem to be going backwards in terms of being the best of the best? Doesn't make a lot of sense. What makes a lot of sense is that Eli Crane, he just wants white men to be in the military. That's Eli Crane's whole thing. He is essentially a white nationalist, which, brings us to Senator Tuberville, who had a really tough time talking about white nationalists in a recent interview on CNN.
But just to be clear, you agree that white nationalists should not be serving in the U.S. military. Is that what you're saying?
If people think that a white nationalist is a racist, I agree with that. I agree they should.
A white nationalist is someone who believes that the white race is superior to other races.
Well, that's some people's opinion. And I don't think,
That's
I mean,
not
a lot.
opinion.
Pardon?
What's your opinion?
My opinion of a white nationalist, if somebody wants to call him white nationalist, to me is an American. It's an American. Now, if that white nationalist is a racist, I'm totally against anything that they want to do because I am 110% against racism. But I want somebody that's in our military, that's strong, that believes in this country, that's an American, that will fight along anybody, whether it's a man or woman, black or white, red, it doesn't make any difference. And so I'm totally against identity politics. I think it's ruining this country, and I think that Democrats ought to be ashamed for how they're doing this because it's dividing this country and it's making this country weaker every day.
But that's not identity politics. You said a white nationalist is an American.
It is identity politics.
You said a white nationalist is an American, but a white nationalist is someone who believes horrific things. Do you really think that's someone who should be serving in the military?
Well, that's just a name that has been given. I mean,
It's not.
listen,
It's a real definition. There's real concerns
so if
about
you're going to do away
extremism.
with most white people in this country out of the military, we got huge problems.
It's not.
We
It's
got
not.
huge problems.
It's not people who are white. It's white nationalists.
that have a few probably
You see the
different
distinction,
beliefs.
right?
That have different beliefs. Now, if racism is one of those beliefs, I'm totally against it. I am totally against racism.
But that
there's
is
a lot
that
of
is a
people
white
that
a
believe
white
in different
nationalist
things.
is racist, Senator.
Well, that's your opinion. That's your opinion. But if
not
it's
an opinion.
racism, I'm totally against it. I am totally against any type of race, or any type of racism. I don't care what it's in.
So first things first, white nationalism is the racist belief that white people are superior than minorities. That's just it. It is a completely racist thought process, which is a cancer on our society. Super easy to say that. But for Tuberville, he struggles. And you really got to ask yourself, why is it so hard for you to condemn white nationalism? I mean, the real answer is a lot of his support and a lot of the Republican Party's support come from people who are either just totally dedicated to the idea of white nationalism, or they kind of tiptoe around it, right? They may not be full-blown white nationalists, but their racism it bubbles below the surface. So Tuberville, Eli Crane, having a really tough week trying to keep the idea that Republicans are racist kind of with the cap on, right? Now it's just out there. Tuberville is showing his colors. Eli Crane showing his colors. And of course, that's why we have Democrats like Steven Horsford, a representative from Nevada, getting pretty emotional in his speech while he condemned both Eli Crane's and Tuberville's remarks.
Mr. Speaker, the previous speaker, the maker of this amendment, talked about being exhausting. This issue that he has brought before this body and the committee is exhausting. Just this week, the sponsor of this amendment called diversity, equity, and inclusion in the military a, quote, failed experiment. He has called it cancerous. Just this week, a senator from Alabama stated that it was his opinion that white nationalists are not necessarily racist and refused to denounce white nationalists serving in the military. All of this with the backdrop of the same senator holding up hundreds of military nominations, which is actively hurting our national security, something that this NDAA bill would address. To what end? The U.S. Marine Corps does not have a confirmed commandant as we speak. And yet, just an hour ago, on this very floor, one of the members on the other side of this body said his amendment, quote, had nothing to do whether colored people or black people can serve, unquote. Mr. Speaker, these comments show exactly why we need diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Every day, our military grows more diverse, more and more reflecting the diversity of our nation. This amendment does nothing to address the recruitment shortfalls that our services are facing, and instead it will only make it more difficult to recruit Americans on diverse backgrounds representing the true makeup of our nation. What are you so afraid of? Why do you keep bringing these divisive issues to the body of this floor? You are out of order. You are exhausting, Mr. Gates.
The gentleman is no longer recognized. The gentleman is no longer recognized.
I couldn't have said it better than Steven Horsford there. Tuberville and Eli Crane are exactly why we need the training, the diversity, the equity, the inclusion training in our military. That's why our military needs to be woke. That's why our government needs to be woke. That's why our schools need to be woke, so that we don't have these cowards, these idiots in positions of power, these Tubervilles, these Trumps, these Cranes, these Marjorie Taylor Greens. I mean, the list goes on and on. So Horsford there, spot on. And if you guys agree with Horsford, like this video, share this video, And be sure to leave your comments down below and hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button wherever you are, because we've got a long road ahead of us. But videos like this, that leads us to a brighter tomorrow, because I believe that taking action and speaking out against racism and against these white nationalist ideologies is how we get to that brighter future.